state of the city. I know everybody's busy, so I always appreciate you coming out and listening to me. I think a state of the city should do two things. It should tell the truth about where we stand and should make clear where we're headed. And today is hopefully going to be just that for you. It's about momentum, discipline, and opportunity. And Marion has all three of these working in its favor. On this slide, it says Marion's open for business, and I know many of us think that's just a slogan, and it's not a unique one, but our data backs this up. Our friends at Visit SI have given us some statistics which we monitor pretty regularly. One of them, as it pertains to downtown, since we've gone through a multi-year renovation process on the square, in the last year we've had 25,800 plus unique visits to Tower Square from people traveling over 50 miles or more. That is an extraordinary figure, and I don't know what it was before we renovated it, but I think it was certainly in hundreds, not thousands. Year to date, Marion has recorded over 231,000 hotel night stays. Another extraordinary figure. We have more hotels coming online, and with some of the other developments we'll talk about in a minute, you'll know why. Those are important statistics to monitor because it is indicative of obviously how many people are coming here to spend their time, their money, and that's hugely important to our economy. But they also reflect confidence in our city, and they matter because everything I'm going to talk about today builds on that momentum. So looking ahead to 2026, all indicators point to even stronger growth. Now, as you drove out to the pavilion today, you've probably seen lots of things going on. The one thing you can't see because it's inside of the mall, if you haven't been inside of there, is the Oasis Thrill House, also known as the Family Entertainment Center. This is no longer an idea on paper or something that up until this point that we just have to talk about. You can actually see it. We expect a soft opening of this entertainment center within the next few weeks, and this project helps to answer probably an age-old question, but one that many have asked, certainly while I've been in office. What do you have planned for kids and families to do here in Marion? Well, the answer now includes electric go-karts, laser tag, interactive bowling, professional putt-putt, hundreds of arcade games, I think some archery attraction, and a 2-level restaurant and bar. I think that project checks every box. Just as important, it puts the former mall site back on the map as an entertainment destination. We always said we wanted to re-envision that facility as both retail and entertainment, and you're seeing that come to life right before your eyes. So, the field house and sports complex, two different developments altogether, and I want to explain that. They're conflated in people's minds at this time. One of these is funded by our Star Bonds effort, and one is not. And so I want to talk just a little bit about that. But they are absolutely important to each other. They go hand in hand, and they will be a huge part of our visiting economy. And I want to talk about that a little bit. So the steel that you saw coming out of the ground as you drove in here is the field house. That is a I hesitate to use this term because it's a brand name, but many of you are more familiar with the brand name Top Golf. I'm told this is Top Golf Plus, so to speak. It's better because it features all those main elements with Top Golf, but also a pickleball complex, which is of course very popular at this point. It also features 18-hole putt-putt golf course, and like I said, indoor and outdoor pickleball courts, and 2 levels of the interactive driving range. So this is for sure going to change the skyline a little bit out here as those poles and the nets go up for that facility. But I'm just talking to Jennifer Olson on the way in as we pass that. I'm absolutely convinced that's going to bring a huge amount of people to our town. That's important for those of you that own businesses, not just in this area of town, but all over town, as we are going to make efforts to get people driven literally and figuratively to your place of business. So, and along that same line, talk about the sports complex. Now that's right across the street from where you came in here along Sioux Drive. That is a outdoor 12-field modular field, and what I mean by modular field is those are pretty rapidly interchanged between softball, baseball, and soccer. So they can play, 24 teams can be playing in a tournament outside. What's going to go up this spring just north of here is a 150,000 square foot air supported dome, which will have 2 playable fields inside. So if you think about all of those teams that can be playing at once, and more importantly, the people that will be coming to support them, that's what this is all about in one cohesive district. So when I said that one of these, the sports complex across the street, is not a Star Bonds project, and I just want to highlight again because a lot of people conflate these things. That is what we call a P3, or a public-private partnership, that is between the developer and the operator of the sports complex, Williamson County government, and the city government. And I'll talk a little bit in a minute about the finances of that, but that is a unique setup that we've done. It's funded by hotel tax, and that means that you're not having to pay for it, and I'll talk about that just a little bit more. Now, as I want to transition to some of the things that we've done this year and talk about city business and policy updates, a lot of this, of course, only works when city government is doing its job and all the people that work for the city of Marion, and that means the policies that make sense, finances being disciplined, and decisions that are made for the long term. So I think in 2025 we continued along that track and implemented a few unique policies that I wanted to highlight in new legislation that is focused on some accountability and some investment in this town. So first of all, we came to the conclusion that we had, which was not a hard one to come to, but that we had a lot of vacant residential properties and some commercial properties, but mostly it was becoming more and more apparent that some of the stuff that had formerly been occupied didn't look like it had any chance of being reoccupied. And so we passed on some legislation or an ordinance that established a vacant property registry. And so that makes it required for an owner of a property to disclose to the city that the property is not occupied, who owns it, who's the contact, because that's been one of our major issues, is we sometimes couldn't even track down who owns some property. But more importantly, once we've got about 100 properties on that registry at this point, and the secondary goal, but maybe the more important goal, is not just to know where they are and who's responsible for them, but we wanted to put in an incentive program for future owners, for developers that wanted to take on some of those properties and reinvest in them and hopefully solve some of our availability and affordability problems that we have demand for as we're bringing in more and more people to town for housing, to incentivize them to reinvest in those properties. And we've just started that process. We've had some takers and some applications to that, and we'll keep you updated on that. But there's one thing about having people coming in and building new houses, but I think it's a more altruistic thing, and try to rebuild the stuff that we've already got and not see them continue to fall in disrepair. So we'll continue to work hard on that in the city, and hopefully we'll see some results from that, or you will see some results from that. Second thing I wanted to talk about was not a new program. Actually, this is the 3rd year of our residential TIF grant program. This might be, probably is, my favorite thing that we've done, and I want to explain again a little bit more about that. But we've got some statistics. Like I said, the statistics bear the facts over the impact this has had. So just as by way of review, you've probably heard the term TIF district before. Mayor Butler was a first mover on that way back in 1987 when TIF legislation was in the mid-'80s when it first came out and available in the state of Illinois. So that's nothing new to Marion. What is a little bit new is that 5 years ago we established our first residential TIF district. Probably somewhat of a misnomer, because there really isn't a difference between residential TIF or commercial TIF. There's a misunderstanding all across the state that it cannot be used for residential purposes. That's absolutely not true. To the extent that since we've done this, my chief of staff, who is also our TIF administrator, Cody Moak, is in extraordinary demand all over the state of Illinois with other places that want to know just how the heck we've done this. So he goes and speaks to places several times a year over the state. Hopefully it'll be replicated across the state. But the goal here was similar to the vacant property registry issue, was to try to invigorate some of our older neighborhoods. And we started that with residential TIF 1. I think we put that into place 5 years ago, and it followed the year or two after that with residential TIF 2. And those two basically cover the southern half of the town south of Main Street, roughly. So what we did is, the whole goal of TIF is to incentivize things, get new things built, generate new tax dollars from property tax. The city gets the extra, the increment. Only if those properties go up in value or there's new properties does the city get anything in the TIF fund. And that's the trick. If nothing ever new gets built, if nothing happens, then it's a nothing burger. But some people did build some new things, and there were some new tax revenue in there, and the city used that $5,000 at a time to incentivize homeowners to do small projects, improvement projects to their home. Now they have to spend some money of their own in order to get the full benefit of that TIF grant. And the map that you see depicted here on this screen, I know not everybody can see it, but this is available as a Google map. It's a live map on the City of Marion's website. If you're curious and you want to go in there, you can click on all these points of interest and actually see how much each homeowner spent and on what project. But things like new roofs, fixing roofs, tearing down a dilapidated outbuilding, removing a dead tree, in some cases landscaping, replacement of windows, repairing of fences. To date, and like I said, we just finished our 3rd year of this program. The city, through the residents in that TIF district, has generated enough incremental property tax that we've been able to grant out $4 million, $5,000 at a time. Here's the key to that. The residents, what that actually yielded was what I think is first of its kind. I hesitate to mention this or encourage you to think of an example, maybe is the right way to put it, where you can come up with something government that worked this well, but the residents invested 3 to 1. So that $4 million yielded 3 to 1 results. There's been about $12 million invested in those properties in our older neighborhoods. And so that leverage is exactly what we were hoping for and what the program was designed to create. Could not be happier with that. So we'll continue on that path, and that one of those TIFs has another 20 years left in it. So imagine the impact that this is going to have on our town. Pivoting a little bit to a subject that I want to bring up that really came as a surprise to me. I didn't have much knowledge of this issue when it came to my attention. Matter of fact, I'll admit I'd never heard the term, and I want to make sure that you have, because this is a subject that is dangerous in our community and communities all over, in my humble opinion. Back earlier in the year, we banned the sale of a substance called a kratom in the city limits. Now, kratom is sort of a brand name, I think. The scientific name for this drug is called Miprogena speciosa. It is a plant that has been grown for centuries, maybe thousands of years in Southeast Asia, so it's not anything new. It's been consumed and abused there, probably for that period of time. Interestingly enough, Southeast Asia, until very recently, when they changed their policy on this, banned the sale of this substance in their own country. They were fine with shipping it over here. It is just like the term and the subject matter snuck up on me, it has had a way of sneaking up on our communities and of our residents on our communities. This stuff is put into gummy bears, into energy drinks, into other kinds of chewables, any method that you can imagine that people can figure out how to make a drug be able to consume. It seems like that's happened. It came to my attention through a grieving widow who states that she lost her husband in no short reason because of this substance. It was a a pretty well-known person here in the community. And then I had a first responder come to me shortly after that report that was telling me that they were attending car accidents and saw many times multiple empty energy drink bottles strewn in some of these cars. And that really caught my attention, so I started researching it a little bit more, and we took action on it. Now, this is predominantly sold in gas stations and convenience stores and vape shops. If you research this, and we got a lot of pushback from this industry when we banned the substance. There is a lot of money behind this. There's a huge lobby behind it, and there's some very impassioned people, including those that have medical degrees, that will tell you what, glorious things this stuff will do for you. That it can be help you with attention and help you focus and this, that, and the other. But it's also very highly addictive. More concerningly is it's predatorily marketed, in my opinion. So my own son went to one of these gas stations and was there just to buy a soda, and this stuff was pushed on him. And I have that on about a closest authority. Like I said, it was my own son. I know that's being done. That just happened to be at a gas station that was very close to one of our schools. So for all of those that, if you go and research this substance yourself and you're curious about it, and you see some of the alternative information that's out there about the good stuff that this would do for you, here's my advice. Don't take your advice. If you think you need this stuff as medicine to help you in your life, probably the best and highest advice for medical services and substances probably should not be from a gas station attendant. All right, let's move on. There was some significant activity this year across many of our city facilities. Club 60, formerly known as the Marion Senior Citizens Center, completed its renovations, and it really looks and functions fantastically. And I'm proud to say that we've also included there, at no cost to the taxpayer, solar that offsets 100% of that facility's energy use. So we'll all be saving a little bit there on tax dollars forever. Boynton Street Community Center also completed its addition and added no-cost solar with also a full electric offset. The Marion Carnegie Library has a new director, Shelley Hudspeth, that's only about 2 weeks old, and the library program there continues to set the bar in our region. Marion Cultural and Civic Center continues to draw people from across the country. I think I've told you this, I love this statistic, I've said it before, but yet again, we had over 1,000 zip codes represented on ticket sales there at the Cultural and Civic Center. And that is so much of a part. I always said that we should use that facility as an engine to our economic ecosystem, particularly for downtown. I'm so proud that that's exactly what's happening. The fire department also added no-cost solar, also offsetting 100% of its electric cost. The Marion Training Center, which those of you that grew up in Marion of my generation will recognize as the youth center, is currently undergoing renovations led by our fire chief, Tim Barnett. That will serve as both a regional training facility and an emergency management operations center during emergency events. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the financial state of the city. In the years past, I've tried to boil this down. It took me quite a while coming from the business world to think. Ladies and gentlemen, Cheryl Absher. Took me quite a while to learn the vernacular of city government, because it's sometimes different. It's not always what they taught in business school or in business, and so then it took me even longer to figure out that I couldn't explain that in a luncheon either. If it took me a year to figure out what that meant and what that equated to in business, there was no way to do it in a luncheon, and wouldn't want to try. So I've tried to boil down in picture form so that you could digest it in a venue like this. So I've got 3 graphs for you. I know some of you can't see over on this side of the table. I'll do my best to explain what these say if you can't see it. So first of all, a couple of city dresses. I think it was in 2023 I stood here and told you that for the first time in history, Marion had become a billion-dollar city when it came to retail sales. I'm pleased to tell you that for this fiscal year, this is our fiscal year that ends in April, it appears that we will blow right past $1.3 billion in retail sales in Marion. The graph here shows about the last 20 years and the trajectory of Marion's retail economy as measured by that sales tax collection. Since 2019, growth has exceeded 60%. 60%. And being the math nerd that I sometimes can be, yes, I backed it off for inflation because I know that inflation has something to do with that. We all feel that on a daily basis. But we're still knocking on the door. Even inflation adjusted, our economy's grown about 40% in the last 6.5 years. So I think that's something that you should all, as business owners, be proud of. That is not something that this guy did or that the city did. It's something that you guys are doing. These are the numbers you're producing. So I would have to say I believe Marion's economy is certainly firing on all cylinders, but that is due to you in the room. It's also of note that the effect of star bonds has not made it into these numbers yet. That is not open for business. So I absolutely hope and expect that we'll see even better numbers in the future. Now, all of this progress has not come on the backs of issuing debt. And that's I think, the second slide. This slide is about the last 20 years or so, I think, of what we call, again, one of these terms I had to learn, general obligation debt. So this is the burden on our general fund, our checking account, what we have to pay. This, in your world, this is your car payment, your house payment, your utility bill, all of that stuff that you've borrowed for, your car and your house, for example. So the big peak there was when we borrowed money to build the hub. We're getting close to getting the hub completely paid for, I think will in the next couple of years. So that's why that hump was there. But what I'm pleased to tell you, there's a caveat to this, and I'm going to segregate this a little bit. This graph and my statements do not include the fact that we did borrow $30 million to build that facility across the street. The reason I'm saying that as a separate issue is that was modeled and serviced by a very unique, separate income stream, and that has to do with the hotel bed tax. So it is general obligation debt. I could make the argument, so could you, to include that, which would spike that up. In my mind, however, this is not serviced by things that we have to pay for, like fire service, police service, street repair, all of that stuff. It's kind of its own standalone model. The reason that that's important is that it is that way is because the hotels themselves are the primary beneficiaries of the sports complex. We think that will bring in another 80,000 hotel room night stays, 84,000 I think to be precise, on top of the 231,000 that I just said that we already have, and hence that's why you see 3 hotels going up now in town. But they are the primary beneficiaries of it. So in short, this is sort of an economic holy grail point. The people that are using the sports complex are paying for it by their hotel stays, not you. Does that make sense? So that's why I segregate that mentally from our general obligation debt. So with that caveat being said, the other stuff we've borrowed money for, I'm pleased to report to you that for at least for the last 20 years that I've been looking at it, this is the lowest amount of debt that the city of Marion has had in 20 years. Third slide, relative to the financial state of the city, has to do with, so I've talked about debt, I've talked about sales growth. What does that yield? And this is another graph another term we call reserves in the city, and I'll try to lay that out what that means. So if you guys have a checking account that you pay all your bills out of, anything that's left over, hopefully, I see the bankers in the room, you would want to move that from a checking account to a savings passbook account or some other interest-bearing mechanism so that that's not your day-to-day money, that's your savings. So reserves in our world is what that is. That's our savings account. This graph represents the amount of our reserves. So we're saving money, which is another way. This is sort of the opposite of the state and federal government. We are not spending more than we're taking in. We're not running a deficit budget. We're running consistent, 7 in a row, surplus budgets.
I think we should plan.
Those surplus budgets add to your savings account. Now, you could make the argument that you can save too much. I would make an argument that, how is this benefiting you? Well, in 2019, the council made a pact, and it was kind of a simple one. We'd rather earn interest than pay it. And what this is yielding at this point is somewhere on the neighborhood of about $1 million a year in interest that we didn't have 7 years ago, that we can spend on city services without borrowing and without taxing you. Does that make sense? So that's going to yield, as long as future leaders don't spend it all down, that's going to yield benefits forever as that money can hopefully continues to grow. Or, God forbid, if we have another hiccup in the economy or anything like that, like COVID. When COVID happened, I don't know if you can see the years on here, but we had less than 60 days supply of cash to operate city government. And it looked like at that particular moment that we were not going to have a lot of sales tax coming in, and it was very worrisome. So I kind of made the pact with myself. I was going to get us out of that situation to where we weren't, I wasn't feeling so nervous. So next, I want to talk about some of the community partnerships that we've been beneficiaries of. You all have been beneficiaries of. I absolutely believe that strong communities are built through these partnerships. Marion Connects continues to deliver excellent events, from Third Thursday to neighborhood spotlights and some historical programming. We're so appreciative of them and their continued effort. Heroes United Not-for-Profit is a recipient of this year's Mayor Service Award and next year's Chamber Luncheon. They've delivered now 2 years of outstanding events by bringing Freedom Sings USA to Marion, which pairs so perfectly with our Veterans on Parade event, which is always the first weekend of September. This year marked the 15th anniversary of our sister city relationship with Kanye, Japan. We had a wonderful visit just in October, and we're so looking forward and preparing already for our colleagues' return from Japan to visit Marion next year. And as many of you will know, just from this past weekend, we just wrapped up our biggest yet Very Merry Marion event. I still remember our first attempt at that in 2019, and boy, what a difference. Between the parade and the market, it's certainly become a signature event that our community truly looks forward to each year. Next, I would like to talk to you a little bit about the Midway Court area. I think I talked a little bit about this last year, but there's been some developments that I want to tell you about. This absolutely continues to be one of the absolute focus areas on renewal for our city. Over the past 5 years, as I've told you before, the city's made a very focused effort to acquire properties in that area, 71 to date to be exact, and reset the direction of that neighborhood. 2026 is going to be a very pivotal year in that effort. First of all, the first thing that you can see right now, the Marion High School Building Trades Program has completed its first home in that area. We partnered with them because we were all getting a little anxious and tired of waiting on the next thing I'm going to tell you about. So they needed to build a house. We had land, and so we decided that they were going to build 2 at once, and that's what they've been doing. And it is so cool, and it's so attractive, and the kids have put their heart and soul into it, and it is absolutely encouraging to me to walk through that house, and I hope all of you at some point get the opportunity to do that. To the point that one of the students has written scriptures on all of the overhead door jambs and things, which will get covered up, I'm sure, probably with sheetrock and stuff, but that gives you a little indication, whether you're spiritual or not, it's so indicative that they've literally put their heart and their soul into it. But what I alluded to is after several years of waiting, 4 years as a matter of fact, we did receive approval for a tax credit development this year, which construction is expected to start in 2026. That's going to be 41 units. I think that's pictured here, depictions in the bottom left-hand corner. This will be a total of 41 units to be built in the Concord, Hendrickson, Duncan, Midway Street, that block, and a little bit of the surrounding area. That includes, this is very unique for this type of program, 27 single-family homes. Those will be income qualified units. It's not a project per se, but as long as folks need the help, they can qualify for those. And they will be brand new, super energy efficient. It's going to change the look much for the better in the vibe in the neighborhood, and they'll be truly affordable homes, brand new homes in Marion, a lot of them. We also added a pocket park. For those of you who have not heard that term, you can see a picture of it. We've got a bunch of pictures. I wish we could show you this, but there's a little bit of a backstory to this. So Cody, Jennifer, and I, and Rachel, I think, my staff, we follow this guy who writes books and a blog called Revitalize or Die. His name is Jeff Sigler. He's a pretty well, for people in our world anyway, he's pretty well known and followed. He's also pretty brash. He tells it exactly like he sees it, and good, bad, or indifferent, we were encouraged by a lot of that as we planned and renovated the square. Well, when the square was finished and we had those overhead photos that Jared Long took, which are some really good pictures, Cody sent Jeff an email. We didn't know Jeff, we just knew of him, just thanking him and wanted him to know what an encouragement he had been to our city leaders on that project. Well, I think Jeff was pretty blown away and encouraged himself that somebody noticed, that somebody cared, that somebody took the time to reach out to him, and he had no idea that he had a hand, an invisible hand, if you will, in the revitalization of the square. Well, Jeff reached right back out to Cody. He said, he was so excited and said, well, let me come to town and let's do a project. So he came. It was a whirlwind 2-day event. We met at Seasonings Bistro the night before with no plan, no tools, no supplies, but we had already talked to the residents of Midway Court, and they kind of said, well, it'd be nice to have a basketball court, it'd be nice to have some benches and maybe some landscaping. So we took one of these lots that we knew was not going to be built on. And in one day, with the help of the Marion Future Farmers of America and the building trade students, which are building the house just across the street, and some many of you in this room, volunteers, in one day we put this pocket park together. And it's super cool. But let me tell you what the best part about this story was. And I hope you take this part away, because this makes a mayor smile ear to ear, and a dad. Jeff said to Cody at the end, he said, you know, for all the people in the country of my generation that say something along the line of kids these days, they just haven't met Marion's kids yet. That was freaking awesome. I love that. So let's see. Next, I want to talk real briefly about Marion 2039. For those of you that attended the chamber dinner, and the very few of you that were listening to me when I spoke, I initiated this or announced this last January. So we are 8 months into that. Let me, by way of review, tell you what this is. 2039 is the 200th anniversary of the city of Marion. So at the time when I said that, we were plus or minus 15 years off from that. And for those of us in leadership positions and getting older, you have to eventually come to the conclusion that you won't be here forever. And so we're trying to figure out what do we need to do to inspire, encourage, and get other people on board that can lead this community. Not necessarily in elected office, but in some of the vital volunteer roles and service organization roles. And so we came up with this group called 2039. We have several inaugural members of that first class here. But these are the folks that we want to inspire to lead Marion into its third century. So we are on the cusp of needing to populate, so to speak, our second class. And that's going to be my ask of you today. I try to make a habit of making a challenge or an ask of each of you at these events. And that's what I want you to consider, is who do you know within your organization, within the community, somebody that lives on your block that you think could be a future part. And again, it's not necessarily elected office. That would be great too. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the city of Marion. We need leaders in county government. We need all, in all the different commissions and things that are run, that run our town and our county. We need individuals to get familiar with the people now and and make connections so that they can prepare themselves to lead in the future. So if you can think of somebody between now and say the chamber dinner in January, that would be great. That would be very appreciated. And if you'll raise your hand, Jennifer's been my point person and lead on this. But if you can think of somebody between now and then, please consider mentioning that to Jennifer Olson and invest yourself by investing in them to invest in our town. Next, I want to mention that next year, 2026, is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I remember so fondly the 200th anniversary. I was a small kid, but I remember it very well, the excitement and the patriotism that was replete all over the country, and we're hoping to do our part in Marion and recreate that somewhat. And I'm calling it the Summer of Red, White, and Blue. So we have been working with local organizations, many veteran organizations and others, for several months to plan some varied events and get all that calendar so that we can share that with you. And you're going to hear a lot more of that in the coming months as those plans come together. But I do want to give you a little tease and a preview. Thursday, July 2nd, you're going to want to mark that one on your calendar. So I see some phones coming out. So July 2nd, that's a Thursday night, Mountain Dew Park. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I signed a contract this morning. And it's going to be our centerpiece event, so to speak, and it's very unique for Southern Illinois, as in never before done. And I hope you will put that on your calendars and join us. And if you're part of an organization and you think that there's something you can do to add, not just give you an example, I think this one's already taken care of, but I want American flags on both sides of Main Street all the way through town. And so we've got an organization that's going to help us deploy and maintain those flags. But if you can think of something like that, that your business, your organization, or maybe even you want to do on a small scale to be a part of this important celebration, please let me, Cody, or Jennifer, or Rachel know. Lastly, in closing, I want to thank you so much again for having me, your partnership, your investment, all your confidence in Marion. As I said last year, I'd be remiss if I didn't take just a little bit of time to thank my staff. It's been a great year. I absolutely am blessed to have all of them working together, rowing the boat in the same direction. I think you see results of that, and I'm so thankful for that, and so thankful to all of you for the opportunity and the privilege, really, to serve as mayor of Marion. So we are building deliberately, we're governing responsibly, and we're planning for a future that honors our past and preparing for what comes next. So Merry Christmas to all of you. May God bless you, our great nation. May God continue to bless the city of Marion, Illinois. Thank you.